The U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission found that Chinese Communist Party seeks to advance global Marxism to confront the West.
Drug development expert saying that it's not the virus killing the people. That's for our feature story today.
Welcome everyone, I'm your host Wei Fang.
I'm Cathy Zhang.
Okay, so I'll be bringing you the important news to you. And the Chinese regime advanced global Marxism to confront the Western-led international order. And the report from the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, it's called USCC, released its annual report today.
Right. So the report found that the Chinese Communist Party seeks to undermine the current international system and they wanted to replace it with a Beijing-led Marxist order. So what is USCC?
Well, USCC is an advisory body to the Congress. It was created in 2000. Currently, it has 11 bipartisan commissioners. According to the commission, the report responds to their mandate to monitor, to investigate, and to report to Congress on national security implications of the bilateral trade and economic relationship between the United States and the People's Republic of China. The report also includes the result and recommendations of their hearings, research, and review of these areas identified by the Congress.
So on the top level, what's the Commission's major finding with this 551-page long bipartisan report in this year? So let's hear from the Commission Chair, Carolyn Bartholomew of this commission.
The Chinese Communist Party's ambitions for global leadership became ever clearer in the CCP centennial year.
So Bartholomew said that the CCP continued to expand its confrontation with the other nation throughout 2021 and that its aggression was growing concern among the international community.
Announcing its goal to provide the world with a new model of human advancement, the Chinese government deepened its embrace of aggression, wolf warrior behavior, and coercion, heightening concerns throughout the Indo-Pacific and elsewhere in the world about China's rise.
The USCC report was released just a couple of days actually after the first virtual summit between President Joe Biden and the CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping. It was noted that the meeting failed to make substantial headway in easing the ongoing tensions between these two nations.
So in this report, the Commission outlined the threat posed by the CCP to democratic nations around the world, adding that the CCP's Marxist ideology and the inability to accept critique was putting it on the path toward global conflict. So in the report, it states that the ideology drives the CCP's messaging. The regime believes that the so-called scientific truth of Marxism-Leninism as a solution to China's problems and claim that the CCP alone out of all the political forces was able to fulfill the Chinese people's desire for rejuvenation after the history of humiliation by outside powers. So it's obviously they are, always using this nationalism, to trigger people's, desire.
Right. Okay. And also in the report it says it lacking a representative governance system, the CCP also uses claims about the superiority of its political model to justify its authoritarian rule and views any criticism or admission of failure as a threat to its legitimacy. The CCP leaders thus feel obligated to highlight what they consider to be advantages of China's authoritarian system, even in the face of clear systematic failure.
And the report also noted a growth in rhetoric among CCP leadership, asserting that the party has been preparing for a confrontation between the so-called order of China and the chaos of the West, which was referring to the contested United States presidential election last year and the January 6th, the Capitol breach. So the CCP leader claimed that it's a clear contrast, between the order of China and the chaos of the West. So things happen in the United States, oftentimes being taken advantage by the CCP.
Yeah. And the report also highlighted the growing commitment by the CCP to combat so-called strong enemies, a term CCP frequently used to describe the United States. In addition, the report found that as the CCP marketed the centenary of its founding earlier this year, its leadership urged the Chinese people to prepare for a decades-long confrontation with the United States and the other democracies over the future of global order.
In the report, it found that the CCP leaders reaffirmed their dedication to the development and the proliferation of the Marxism-Leninism in its sixth plenum communique last week, in which they championed quote-unquote a socialism with Chinese characteristics, and saying that they were creating a new model for human advancement.
Mm-hmm. And actually, this report is fairly accurate to my knowledge. I'll just hear this. The report found that the CCP was taking a whole-of-government approach to undermine the United States and its allies. The report said CCP to explore existing ties with the national and the subnational governments, local businesses, and other stakeholders to create a new opportunity for the party. It is said the CCP was dedicated to subverting international institutions and building new regional and international institutions with which to replace them in a bid to expand the Chinese communist influence abroad.
Yeah, so we just take out, some of the main points from the report. So actually, it's a long report, as you can see, over 500 pages. And for this year's report, the Commission conducted 7 public hearings, taking testimonials from 75 expert witnesses from the government, private sectors, academia, think tanks, research institutions, and other backgrounds. This year's hearing include quite a few topics. They include U.S.-China relations at the Chinese Communist Party's centennial, deterring PRC's aggression toward Taiwan, U.S. investment in China's capital market, and military-industrial complex. And what are the others?
And the assessment of the CCP's economic ambitions, plans, and the metrics of success, and also China in Latin America and the Caribbean, and China's nuclear forces, and the emerging risk of U.S.-China relationship in 2021. So what's the Commission's finding in regards to CCP's aggression towards Taiwan?
The Commission concluded that the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, is at or near initial capability to invade Taiwan. At our hearing on deterrence in the Taiwan Strait, we documented the PLA's capabilities and expect that it will continue building on these capabilities, supported by high levels of defense spending and the fielding of new advanced warships, aircraft, and missiles. We also noted that an invasion of Taiwan would be a high-risk option for the PLA and identified factors that could deter Chinese leaders from ordering an attack.
And so the USCC report included 32 recommendations for the congressional consideration, including 10 of them they deemed as most important for the congressional action, and they hope that it will be useful to the Congress for assessing the progress and the challenge in the U.S.-China relations.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you watched President Biden's talk with Xi Jinping the other day, 3 days ago, I think. Yeah, and what do you think? And in my opinion, I think the USCC report is fairly accurate. Okay, so and so were the former Secretary of State Pompeo. CCP is really it's ill intention. It's cannot be underestimated. And in my view, I think President Biden really still underestimated them. So pretty much saying that we don't seek to change you, let's coexist, let's compete, I recognize your existence. And in a normal society, it's understandable. Yes, you got a strong competitor. You recognize them, and you just fairly just compete with them. But in the case of CCP, no. Okay, this is not a normal neighbor which grows strong. This is an evil force which will trample on you and kill you at any cost in whatever means. That's the evil that we're facing. Okay, when President Biden just treat them as just a normal person or a normal competition, it will carry very costly consequence. U.S. have to be very, very strong and has to have a determination to terminate that regime. I'm not advocating waging wars. There's many other ways, because communism is essentially just an ideology. An ideology can be a bad, and the ideology can be defeated with truth. And there's a lot of things that U.S. can work on in the peaceful way and the effective way. All right, let's move on to the next piece of news. Cathy?
Okay. Yeah, so you probably have heard today's news about the Labor Department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, called OSHA, announced that it has suspended the implementation and the enforcement of Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for the private businesses, and this came shortly after the U.S. Appeal Court, which is a fifth appeals court in Atlanta, rejected a challenge by the Biden administration on November 12th and reaffirmed that its decision to put on hold OSHA's mandate, which requires that a business with 100 employees or more and ensure the workers either be vaccinated against the virus by January 4th next year, or be tested weekly and wear a mask. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it seems the Biden administration, still just putting a lot of. They actually accelerated the production of the vaccine as we speak, but. So next we'll lead you to our feature story, which I will share with you one of my interviews with a doctor in the frontline, actually, who is a drug development expert, how he led the effort to combat the pandemic. It's a pretty interesting story, but I think at this point we will just switch totally to Safe Chat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, let's move over there, and we'll have I think, very in-depth reporting of this special interview, and we can all learn from it. All right, come on over.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.